My name is Annabel Rodriguez. I'm 28 years old. I've lived in East Boston since 2005. My father lived here before we moved here. My mom, my brother, and I lived in New York. He moved here, thought it would be a better life for us here in Boston. Rent was cheap, there were lots of jobs, the school systems here were great, so he decided to move the family to East Boston. I have mixed feelings about the change. As a young attorney, I love the new restaurants that are popping up in East Boston. That's one of the things I love about Boston, just the different types of food and such great restaurants. But as a person who had lived here a long time and has seen the change in rent and availability of apartments, I've noticed there is displacement of certain types of people, and it worries me. I'm lucky enough to have a job, and my brother is lucky enough to have a job where we can afford to live in East Boston, but that's not true for everybody, unfortunately. I saw a change start when I was in college. I think that's when I sort of noticed that new places were popping up, that rents were increasing. That's when our rent started to increase in our last apartment. So I think it's been a steady growth. When I moved here, our rent for a two-bedroom apartment was $850. Our current rent is $2,400 for a three-bedroom apartment. It's a great apartment. It's fairly brand new, and it's very different from our old apartment. It's much bigger, but still, that I think is a lot that's a high rent for East Boston. The upside to the changes in East Boston is that there are new businesses. There's a lot of new young people moving to East Boston, so a lot of very cool coffee shops, a lot of very cool restaurants. There's a brewery that we didn't have before, so really a great place to hang out with friends. So that's the upside, I think, to what's happening in East Boston. I think the change is due to the fact that people are realizing now that the Blue Line is one of the most convenient T lines in Boston. I mean, we've had so many snowstorms, and the amount of times that the Blue Line has broken down is very little compared to the Green Line, the Red Line, the Orange Line. It is very reliable. It's always on time. Delays happen, but they would be maybe 10 to 5-minute delays. They're very short delays. And it's just easier to get into the city. So I think people are realizing that. They're realizing that places like South Boston, the Back Bay, Cambridge are getting very expensive. And if your goal is to live in the city or live close to the city, I think East Boston is your best bet. The downside is the increase of rent. We see a lot of apartment buildings popping up with rents up to $3,000, and I know just from living here and knowing the people that used to live in East Boston, they can't afford it. I mean, most of the people that live in East Boston work either at the airport in cleaning companies or around the area in hotels, and they are making most likely minimum wage, and they can't afford a $3,000 rent. If they're lucky enough to own their house, great, they can control that rent. But if they're not, it's very difficult to find something affordable in East Boston. But because of the location, because it's so close to the city, because everyone's moving here, I think homeowners are realizing that they can get a lot of value for their homes, and homes are estimated at almost $1 million. The area, Maverick Square, I remember I learned to drive down there, and it was just empty, parking lots. It was very empty spaces, so you could drive around and make U-turns and make three-point turns, and it was very easy. Now, you go down there, and that's by the water, and it's all these new apartment buildings, and really, I don't remember anymore. I don't think it's there anymore, the parking lot where I learned to drive. And then more recently, more apartment buildings have been popping up that are blocking that old view. So you can sort of see the struggle of trying to fit as many new apartment complexes as possible in that area, given it's so close to the city, the Blue Line's right there, the view is incredible. I mean, it's the same view as if you were in South Boston looking into East Boston. It's an incredible view of the city.